Oh, welcome. We are live. It is January 3rd, 2024. Welcome, gentlemen. Happy New Year, everyone. How was your holidays, my friends?
Going on. Appreciate you having me.
Likewise, yeah. Holidays went great. Thanks for asking. Always nice to hang out with family and friends, and yeah, good food.
Right?
Gain about 35 pounds, and
Have those discussions of any sort of extra phenomenon going around in the skies or the grounds around you these days? Or the disclosure that might be happening or might not be happening.
I haven't noticed anything, but it's been really cloudy here recently.
Yes, here as well. And I had a horrible migraine headache yesterday, and then I get home, I talk to my father. He's like, yeah, I had the same thing, and we're both like simultaneously said, yeah, it's like the crazy X-band radiation from the sun or whatever coming in, the big flare that happened, and that there should have been or should be crazy auroras being able to be seen, especially here in Canada, I would assume, but it's just been cloudy the past couple of days. Misty, foggy, actually. Strange.
kind of missed the fog when I grew up in Kathmandu. It was very, very foggy. So this time of year,
Yeah.
barely see it in front of you.
You know the cold, freezing Canadian fog, though.
Oh, yes. I remember it well.
How about you, ElkMan? How's it been out in Ontario?
Everything seems pretty sweet. The weather's been pretty nice, but yeah, the last week or so has been super foggy here. I haven't noticed much in the sky. Like there was one day when there was a lot of like lightning, but no thunder and no storm. So that was kind of interesting. But that was a while ago, probably about like a month ago, I'd say. That's the last thing I've seen that was interesting.
Those are interesting. The sheet lightning sort of storms. The one time before it did a crazy flood in 2013 in Calgary, I'll never forget that night. Before this crazy, like, what was it called? Atmospheric river came in and like hit the Rocky Mountains and just like came down and flooded everything. The night before, it was just like the craziest electrical storm we'd ever seen in the sky, and it was just moving so fast, like just shooting in from the southeast, like a direction it never comes from. It always usually will come from either the west or the north, where I'm located, due to the Rocky Mountains and the Chinook.
Sounds pretty cool.
Chinook winds, right? Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen anything like that. But yeah, the holidays are pretty good overall. It's nice to spend time with family. Got to play some games with everybody, and won a little bit of money. It's pretty cool.
That's always
Monopoly doesn't count.
What have you guys been working on?
I got this beauty.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty
Aren't you wearing it?
Because I have to match in my comfortable Merry Christmas toque. That
Can we call you a flasher now?
Rick and Morty style. Definitely. All right. So I guess I clickbaited titled this stream to be the Pyramids of America and Tartaria. So I should probably get into it just a little bit and present some evidence of what the heck I'm talking about. Yeah. But for backstory, Shem is in Ohio, has looked into many mound in the Americas, but before stream, people were asking about the Black Pyramids in Alaska, and that we'll try to look up here in a little bit. Maybe ElkMan might know something about it. I'm not sure, but this
is it Pyramid Mountain?
Could be. What's the name? Is it Mount Rainier? Is that one? Is that one in Alaska or no?
That's in Washington State. Just
okay, never mind.
I think it's literally called Pyramid Mountain.
All right, well, we should check that one out. This one
It's a
here
lot like
is-
Mount Kailash in Tibet, which is interesting without its
Mount Kailash is another epic one, 100%.
very similar. Huh.
This guy or girl pyramid, I don't know. I don't know how this pyramid self-identifies, but it is from the Faroe Islands. It is from the Faroe Islands.
Airdrop.
And then, so Faroe Islands, is that in Alaska, or there's also the Cole Peninsula one. Where do we go here? Ooh.
It's interesting that you would say Alaska as well, because across from Alaska, on the Siberian Peninsula side, outside of what is that, Vladivostok, there are supposedly 2 other pyramids, and so that's in a similar.
By Vladivostok?
Yeah, I know. Supposedly the Soviets mined one of them down and like tried blowing the other one up or something in the 60s or 70s. This, I guess,
It's right on the entrance to one of the port rivers that go in. Yeah, really, really interesting. Where is this? This is
Krasnoyarskaya, Russia.
Oh wow,
Krasnoyarsky, Russia.
Interesting.
What do they say about this?
Krasnoyarsk, Russia. Krasnoyarsk. Apparently. This, how is that anything but a built wall and like what looks like a melted castle literally behind it? Like, I don't see that.
Structure formed naturally, is
right,
unless it was dirt caught in an ice sheet and the ice sheet melted instead of like breaking away. But I don't see that.
Oh, what's this bad boy?
Oh,
Look at this.
What is that?
The High Guide Fort.
Let's just build an impossible structure on the side of this cliff. Yeah.
Seems to be a lot of that.
Right? A lot of it indeed. These guys, right? That's only 25%? Like 75, 65% left buried underneath.
That's definitely on the bucket list. I would love to go to Easter Island.
You and me both. We will have to go there from Easter to Christmas to catch an equinox to solstice or solstice.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's why they met there, I believe, at those times of year. That's why it was called either Easter or Christmas Island. They'd go there to check out the pyramids, and this is on, I believe, the other side of the world, the Glory Islands, I believe.
It's interesting when you did the show with Sam Osnovanich. In his books, I mean, it's like every continent has there's thousands of pyramids everywhere. It's mind blowing.
Kola Peninsula. The Kola Peninsula is where these ones are. So that is just all over Europe. Well, East Eurasia, into Alaska, into the Americas right there. And then there's also Mount Tumtum that you've got some personal experience with, Hans.
I do. So that's north of me in Washington. It's south of Mount St. Helens, about an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. It's an hour north of me, and you drive up this river valley, and it's right there in front of you. Boom. And I mean, there's nothing else around it that looks anything like it. And the Native Americans, or the indigenous Americans of the region, used it as a trading post because it was so easily seen for miles and miles around it. And I went up with a friend of mine. Well, it was about October in, I want to say 2015, and we bushwhacked all the way up it. There is a road that goes to the top of it because they've used it several times, but the most recent iteration was used for logging. And so they would plant trees all over it and then log them out. But if you bushwhack all the way up it, the whole thing is terraced, and it's not like modernly terraced. It's very old terracing. And there are bones. You find, remains up there quite a bit. The only thing that, makes it of interest outside of that it looks like a pyramid. I don't know if you can pull up a picture of it, but is that the
sorry, I'm having trouble with my computer. Shem, maybe are you able on your new baby computer laptop to possibly pull some up, share screen as mine? Oh, you already got the tab open, so let's bring that up, see what you got.
Yeah, there we go. Boom.
Stefan, to answer your question, I hadn't suspected the Guardians, but I do fully suspect and have been documenting at Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump in southern Alberta and also in Drumheller, Alberta. I also have to show and do a new trip to show the pyramid mounds there.
I'm looking for some pictures of to show the terraces.
You're not going to find them from the distant ones, but I mean, you can kind of see it in the other one, the one in the center. That one there, yeah.
This one?
Yep. Sort of. It's just, yeah. Need to make it super large. Ooh, maybe even that one, the Facebook one. Interesting. Hey, look, Bigfoot.
I have to log into Facebook. Not gonna happen.
No worries.
That's amazing. Is that actually of Mount Tum Tum? And then they have like a fake freaking Bigfoot filming at that place, just as like the first thing that comes up there. Hey, don't look at this place. There's just tomfoolery going around.
And it is interesting that the western side of the mountain is also very barren, and so it's yeah.
And keep in mind that we do know that our ancestors had the capabilities of building things this big in history, because this is the Herodium, which was built by Herod in the Second Temple period of Israel, which is a man-made mountain, the same size as what we were just looking at.
That's actually a very good point, Shem. And I was just looking at Mount Nemrud, I believe, in Turkey, which is another man-made on top of a mountain giant pyramid that they made with these huge crazy structures like temples or thrones.
There's all the broken statues in front of it as well, right?
Yeah, the statues.
So yeah, just look at the size of that.
So this is a man-made mountain.
Yeah, this is man-made in the Second Temple period by Herod the Great, allegedly. So then if we look back at this Mount Tum Tum picture, we can see that it's very similar. Not exactly the same, obviously, but it's at least on the same scale and size. And, I'm just saying it is possible, according to mainstream history, because the Herodium is mainstream history. That's what they're saying about it. There are videos available where people walk through this place, and they have this entire place is just filled with chambers, different chambers of I think they even have heated floors in one section, because the Romans had heated floors.
Oh, I wonder if we can pull up a non-copyrighted video to check that out.
That is super fascinating.
I'll look for the video here in a minute. But one thing I wanted to show originally was we were talking about the pyramids throughout Russia and Asia. This is from Dietrich of Sicily, and he's talking about the works of Semiramis, which seemed to be a lost set of ancient works, which were the wonders of the ancient world. She's responsible for at least two of the ancient wonders of the world: the city of Babel, or the Tower of Babel, and I forget what the other one was. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, I'll just read this short part from Book 2. After she visited Persis in every other country which she ruled throughout Asia, everywhere she cut through the mountains and precipitous cliffs and constructed expensive roads. On the plan, she made mounds, keyword right here, made mounds, sometimes constructing them as tombs for those of her generals who died, and sometimes founding cities on their tops. So every time they're building
Mounds just for generals founding cities on their tops.
well, keep in mind that according to people like Marco Polo, when the Mongolian leader died, or the Khan, they would carry them all the way back to the specific location, and it was like a mound where they would bury all of them. But people like Flamenco say that it's like in Egypt. But anyways, anyone who they came across on the way back to do this, they would murder them. When they got to the tomb, they'd abduct them and sacrifice them to be buried with the leader. But anyways, let's continue this passage. And it was also her custom, whenever she made camp, to build little mounds upon which, setting her tent, she could look down upon all the encampment. As a consequence, many of the works she built throughout Asia remain to this day and are called the works of Semiramis. So when you look this term up, you can't find any information about it at all. It's really hard to find anything about what these works were exactly, but maybe some of the stuff we're seeing leftover could be some of this stuff. But keep in mind that Semiramis has pretty much the same story as like Dionysus, Sesostris, Cyrus the Great. A lot of different people in history, they all have the same story of conquering all these places and doing these great things. And even in Dietrich, if you read Dietrich, you'll hear the same story over and over again with different characters, basically in his chronology, all having the same themes and doing the same exact things.
Potentially these same different characters throughout time reconquering the same great monuments and places and laying claim to building it themselves over and over for their own greatness, when in fact it's like you farther you trace it back, it's like every single person has claimed to make it, but more likely it could be from pre-cataclysm of a bigger ancient society or civilization.
Yeah, it could very well be. Another option is that maybe each one of these stories just has certain pieces to the full picture, so you have to understand all of them to understand what truly happened, and they're just describing the same event under different characters. But I mean, it's hard to tell. All of it could also just be real, the way it's presented to us as mainstream history. I mean, it's impossible to tell for sure what's exactly going on.
But either way, not that long ago or very long ago, they were building really crazy monument mountains.
Yeah, I mean, think about like the Baalbek Temple, for example, just the architecture involved with that, and that's in mainstream history said to be thousands of years ago. So these people were apparently capable of doing things that we're not even able to do today. So why would we discount them on anything? Doesn't really make sense. And even, well, this is off topic, but even the idea that, for example, when the French and the Spanish were colonizing in America, that they weren't able to build any permanent settlements or have any massive cathedrals or anything like that built when they were here, when back in Spain and France, we have reports of like, the Palace of Versailles, like all these legendary places, castles all throughout Europe that were built in the same time period and before. So why would they not be able to do that same thing
point
in America? Good. But yeah, I mean, if you want to take over for a second, I can look for that video maybe. Or
yeah. Well, what else do we have to look up in the random pyramid file folder?
Mount Kailash.
Oh yeah, that's going to require another tab that my slow potato of a computer can't handle. So, oops, we've got in Turkey as well now. Actually,
all those hunters and gatherers, aren't they?
Yeah, hunters and gatherers, pre-cataclysm, established. This is established though pre-Younger Dryas cataclysm, which is the exact same time as Plato's Atlantis cataclysm story, and that it's dated to right at that end of the last ice age, where now they say giant comets came and hit the ice sheets and melted and raised the oceans catastrophically in a very short period of time, and that these were covered up supposedly either right before or right after that had happened or something. And some of them, I guess, do now date. They found other tepes in Turkey area that are like
14 or 15,000 years old.
Terran, right? It's like 40 or 50,000. It's crazy how far back they go.
What's interesting about this image, though, is they kind of shortchange it because this is all you see when you go to Göbekli Tepe. But the reality is
underneath it, there's literally underneath these mountaintops, there's 10 to 20 story freaking underground cities, tunnel cities that they've now
only 10% of the site. And so the question is, they backfilled the entire site in, which goes to say that they were making mountains out of molehills as well back then. And where are you getting all the material to backfill this in?
And then there's the giant jars and bowls of Cambodia and Laos and Burma.
These are in Indonesia, or these are in
Laos and Cambodia?
I think they're in Cambodia.
Well, this specific one I think is Cambodia. But, we got a Getty image. Shout out to some Getty image. Is this CERN?
Go Getty them.
Yeah, I don't know if this guy copyrights his videos or not, but I found one of the inside of the Herodium.
One way to find out.
Well, I guess maybe turn the sound off on it, or play the sound at like 1.5 or something. I don't know.
No, I turned it off, but I don't even know if this is. I don't think this is the same video I saw before.
Look at that smile. It looks like he's going for a tour.
I think as long as you show your screen like that, it's okay.
Oh yeah, there was a video I saw in the past. I'll have to find it again, like where they were like walking through the tunnels and stuff. And I think maybe this is it. It looks familiar. It's been months since I've seen it. Speed it up a little bit, but yeah, this is all inside of this place. And mainstream history says that it was built by man, Herod specifically.
Man, that's got to be one big man.
He ended up murdering all of his sons because he was so paranoid about them usurping his throne. So after he died, that's why, pretty much, I guess, according to mainstream history, Israel fell because there was no stable leader.
Wow. WooWoo.
Interesting. Wow.
Very interesting. It's like, is history repeating itself?
Well, this isn't the only impressive thing he built. He built the second temple, which is massive. The Western Wall still survives to this day.
How?
I don't think this is the same video I saw before, but it just gives you a little bit of perspective because you're not even all the way to the top and you can see how far you can see out. So this is just massive. This is man-made. So, I think this is maybe it. Yeah, all about Jerusalem. This is the video I saw before. Yeah, that view right there. I would love to go here.
And not get targeted by missiles or bullets from either side of the conflict.
But yeah, you can see that. I mean, this is just impressive. This is all through this structure. Obviously, some of it's probably refurbished or redone, but
still, this is mind-blowing.
Right? Like, just
this is like a pyramid. This is like the Great Pyramid or something, but more intricate. But obviously,
totally.
We don't know what's really inside the Great Pyramid. Obviously,
what is the time period of the Atlantis to? Out of curiosity.
Around between 1st century BC and 1st century AD.
Wow. Right at the time of Jesus, they were building these mountains, apparently, eh?
It's massive.
Pretty epic.
Yeah, so yeah, this guy Herod, he's just a very interesting character because he was loved by the Romans, but he was hated by the Israelites and the Judeans at the time period because he was an Edomite, which is apparently like just a converted type of people. So he ended up being the leader of the Israelites and the Judeans. That's his time period. Even though some people didn't really agree with that. But he did keep order, apparently. I don't know. Very weird story. Like I said, he killed his own sons. But yeah, there's a theater in there. All types of stuff. It's wild.
I
waste
built
too much
an
time with that.
epic mountain palace. 2, but then I'm going to murder my children.
Well, the thing is like one of his sons tricked him into thinking that the ones are actually not
Oh,
usurping
his
him.
children one child plotted against all of them and then fucked it all up.
Yeah, and he was the one who wanted to usurp him, but he got him to kill all the other ones who didn't. And then eventually, once he had already killed all of his other sons, he found out that this guy actually did want to usurp him and had him killed like a few days before he actually died himself. And he was so paranoid and weird that when he died, he wanted all the Jewish firstborn males or something to be rounded up into the
And slaughtered and sacrificed.
yeah, so like everyone would mourn at the same time as him, basically, like him dying. But thankfully, when he died, apparently they didn't follow through with this. Just
They're like,
really
yeah, as soon as you're gone, we promise we'll kill all of our firstborns. Don't worry about it, King. Don't worry about it. Yeah, as soon as you're gone, don't worry.
Someone said Herod died of worms and of the gut. Yeah, he had a painful death, apparently. But it's really weird how they call him the Great after all the stuff we just talked about. But yeah, what else have you guys been working on?
That's just fascinating. Hans or ElkMan.
I haven't been working on too much. Not much more than usual. Just the same amount of digging. I've been in the background. I've been working on castles in the USA, and I always get off in tangents on that, and then don't find my way back to it. So that's kind of what I'm working on in the background, but mostly just being an end user and having fun messing around with AI stuff and just chilling out lately. But still doing a lot of research too.
Nice. Well, do you want to give us a little teaser about castles in America? Come on.
I don't know if I can, because the setup I have here is I don't have any. I'm not on my normal setup, so I don't have anything I can share here, I don't think. But let me just see if I can pull some stuff up in tabs in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, if you find a link to it, just send it to me. I can pull it up on my computer.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I've made anything or worked on anything other than that. I haven't gone really anywhere. Just Canadiana's always got a ton of new stuff on there too. So yeah, I usually just go. I was researching the oldest books I found on there too, and there's a lot of interesting stuff, but I'd rather save it all for when I've got it in front of me and can quote it properly. But a lot of interesting stuff of the history of all religions. And I've also been working on the movie ranches and big chunks of land in the States that were basically movie ranches, which were huge allotments of land where they would film all the movies on. But a lot of times there's
jelly
and pyramids and all that stuff on them too, which is pretty interesting.
That's cool. We're down to Hans. We're down to Hans. It says device not connected. Do you have any pictures? Oh, there's a new Hans. There's Hans.
Yeah, for some reason I'm getting an echo. For some reason I dropped out. I'm not really sure why, but I'm
well, glad to have you back.
Give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
Alrighty. Well, Mr. ElkMan, have So you're just teasing us and no pictures.
No, I'm digging for pictures right now. I'm digging.
Ooh, we might get a late Christmas present.
Maybe if I can find what I'm looking for here. Yeah, I'm on a work computer, so I'm like far from home, so to speak, right now.
Well, there's this beautiful place that I really want to go to next year or this year in 2024. Let's go fun Bernie to the Grand Canyon. Right? Look at this place. It doesn't Ooh, why is it free? What the heck happened? See, my computer, it just keeps glitching. What is going on? All right. There we go. This one. Isis Temple. How is that not a pyramid with a giant capstone? I don't know. It used to have a giant hole in the middle. No, it doesn't. There we go. This one. The topographical map of the pyramid complex of the Grand Canyon, where every single peak of these different holy temples perfectly aligns to the stars of the Orion constellation in the sky. How is that possible unless it is artificially constructed? That's a question I pose to everyone, and then you got all of the different caves and entrances from the river. Here we go. Here's the old cave, or the cover-up of the cave, the entrance of Isis Temple, where they went in the 50s or the 60s, I believe, claiming that there was an airplane crash, and when they came out, there was a giant wall now covering up the entrance to Isis Temple. And
I've got something to share with you on topic.
All right.
So I cannot find anything about Cape Pyramid anywhere else. But it is, I'll just show you guys this map. This is the only map I can seem to find it on. Cape Pyramid, District of Franklin in the Northwest Territories. Which is here on Devon Island. And actual Cape Pyramid is right here. If you do an overlay of the island, you can see that there's a lot of photographs that have been taken around there. I'm talking about it on Google Maps right now, but you can't see them. I can't anyways. When I click them, nothing happens. It's just like there's no street view here or whatever. But just so you guys know, this is like a legitimate thing. So if you ever want to check it out on the Burnet Inlet on Devon Island, I'll just pull it up on Google Earth in 1 second.
Isn't Devon Island where they have all the NASA studies going on?
Yeah, that's where they test all of their rovers, and they go in wearing their fake or their actual biohazard suits. So it's like, are they? And this is the most northern uninhabited island of Canada, and I believe the Arctic, the largest northernmost uninhabited supposed island, except NASA goes in with rovers to test stuff there, supposedly. And yeah, it's like
they also did Mars. I think they did Mars 1 there, and Mars 1 is when they select all these potential astronauts that would go to Mars, and they isolated them there for over a year. It was like a year or something, so that they could get accustomed to being in a completely isolated environment. And I believe they're doing that also.
So what if Devon Island pyramid has a portal to Mars? Dun, 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 dun.
A portal to Mars, you just die instantly.
To Mars.
Bum, 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 bum. Could it be true?
There was that one time when they had there was
But
like
I
the
don't
spotlight
know.
by Mars and Devon Island, but I can't find that anymore. Even that's long gone. Like they were saying that all the shots were the exact same, and they had it with one of those photo things where if you slid it over back and forth, you could see what it was. I don't know. I don't give that much weight or anything.
I remember seeing something on that back in the day too, and exactly what
one of the shots from Mars that had like a lemming in it or something, and they're like, these are from
here. We have Devon Island, Pyramid of the Pyramid Bay, Devon Island, the Mars, where they also acknowledge that they work and test the rovers, and the Pyramid of Pyramid Bay of Devon Island, right there, Kaboomy.
Is this like a restricted area or something,
just,
or could someone potentially go here?
It's probably like the same as trying to get to Antarctica, essentially. Yeah, it's like restricted. Oh, shout out! Thank you, John Sup. Shout out, brother, for the support. Super sticker, $10. Greatly appreciated.
Big up, John.
Big up, John Sup. And I'm trying to find from above. So it's like, here we go. Like there's these great cornered, like this looks like canals, 90-degree canals going through Devon Island from above where these pyramids are. It is just nuts. And yeah.
Sign Digger, the OSU. I live by OSU, and they apparently have Admiral Byrd's research and journals, and you can request 1 box per day to look into. I guess they have like tons of boxes of it, and somehow you're supposed to just know what's in the box because you have to make an appointment to go there, and I guess you only get 1 box per day. So I don't know how many boxes there are, so maybe I should start doing that.
You and I have many Admiral Byrd streams to do together. Other than my friend,
my niece got these glasses for
take
Christmas
a box
that
a
you can record
day,
stuff
however
with.
many
my niece got these
yeah.
glasses you can take video on, so I thought, I don't know if you can like actually take pictures of them or not, so I might have to sneak in there with the glasses.
Let's get into the weeds.
I spy Shem Jacobs, Tartarian Truth, getting us that classified now.
Admiral Byrd's brother owns the Texas School Board Depository, which is supposedly where Oswald shot Kennedy from. So,
wait, you're cutting out a little bit. You said Admiral Byrd's brother owned the building,
the book depository in Dallas that Oswald shot Kennedy from.
Interesting.
I'm getting a bit of an echo. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. I might double up.
So yeah, this
is what?
Yeah, this is it on the map here, and it changes quite often. Last time I think it was all covered in snow, but this would be.
I think they're messing with us, and that the ancient Mercator map depictions of the Devon Island, it was one of the 4 islands that goes into like the inner Earth area and like the Mount Meru or whatever the heck it is. So it's like I kind of suspect that it might be that, and one of those canals could be from portal to Mars to portal to inner Earth. What do you think about
those videos that show Mount Meru or the inner Earth, and it goes into the Earth, like everything is just kind of just flowing into some giant
those supposed freaking Soviet planes, right? Like I don't know, man. That like blew my mind when I seen that. I was like, what? Could it be? Could that be? I don't know, man. Maybe.
I mean, it'd be a lot easier to figure out the stuff if we could know what the purpose of pyramids were, since they appear all over the planet.
Exactly. And in the most harshest places. It's like, why would we go through such insane like work and effort and energy in the most inhospitable places to make these things that, like, what purpose do they serve? You're not gonna sacrifice tens of thousands of lives to build something for when you yourself are dead. Well, we got
Yeah, I don't think
weird
the tomb argument doesn't really make sense.
Sorry, I'm gonna be right back. Try to get rid of this echo.
Curious if it's me because I signed in twice. This one I just posted in the private chat is the twin pyramids in Vladivostok. So
Bring it up.
you can do.
Bernie had that whenever you get the chance.
You can do like a right click on it and bring up the image, or open the image in a new tab or something. There's got to be a better picture of this somewhere. Oh, wait for it.
So what would be the explanation for the weird shapes of some of these pyramids, like the Cape Pyramid? What do you guys think about that? Like, why would they be shaped in this way?
I kind of like I have nothing to back this up, but like I kind of think pyramids could be like maybe like old school oil derricks or something, so that they can withstand super amounts of pressure, but you don't find oil or any residue of that in these places. They're all super clean, so it kind of proves that wrong. But I think the density of them is purposely built. So, and if you look at the old ways where they used to extract oil from I can't remember where it was started, but it was, I think it might have been like Vietnam or something, but they all look like pyramids too, all their old oil derricks too. But I've never heard anyone talk about that. It's just
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He wrote a fascinating book about Egypt. Yeah, I think that goes on my end. I'm not entirely sure. I think the echo is on my end. He wrote, God, what is his name? Cadman, something like this is his last name. And so his whole theory behind the Great Pyramid, or the pyramids in general of Giza and Saqqara and Dendera, they all could have been ram pumps, because if you look at the structure underneath Giza that stretches literally all the way to Saqqara, all the way out into the Western Desert, there are up to, if not more, 10 layers thick, which would be hundreds of feet underground, because the Osiris shaft goes down. You're down about 150 feet underground, but you're down 4 layers in the Osiris shaft. So the tunnels go even further underneath this, and they're about the size internally of like the inside of a semi-truck container. And they go, some of them are 18 kilometers, some of them are over 50 kilometers long, and they go all the way into the Western Desert, and they bring up water. And so when you look at the Osiris shaft, pretty much it's underwater, because that's where the water table is right now at Giza. But when all these were built, the ultimate question is, what were they built for? And the thought was to either pump water to the pyramids, or pump water to the pyramids and pump water out of the pyramids. And so the thought is that because in the subterranean shaft of the Great Pyramid, there is a well shaft, and they don't really talk about it because it's all chained off and you can't go down it, but you can look down it, and it goes down another 3 layers, and you see tunnels going off into different directions. And so the thought was that water would bubble up into the subterranean chamber. And if you look at the subterranean chamber, if it was smoothed off and constructed in the past, the water has certainly stripped a lot of that away, because it looks like water has come through that chamber so many different times and just has eaten away the natural limestone and the bedrock. And if there was a, which there was a hinged door originally on the outside on the pyramid before the grave robbers tunnel was dug. And what would happen is the water would bubble up and create pressure, and as you were saying, for the oil rigs, it would create this pressure, and it would burp the door and allow water and hydrogen to split into the different chambers of the Great Pyramid. And so Christopher Dunn was talking about this in his book, The Giza Power Plant, where if you could separate off the hydrogen, which is what this burping, this John Cadman's, it's called a ram pump technology would do, all you would need then is a piezoelectric charge to spark that hydrogen and create an energy field within the pyramid. There's evidence of this in both the king and the queen's chamber.
And
So if you look at granite under pressure, you would have piezoelectric effect, which would cause that spark.
Right, and well, all the pyramids that were covered in which is directly electric dial.
You're cutting out or something.
Bernie, you're on mute.
I was just. I'm getting a weird echo still. I don't.
It's coming from Hans.
I think it's coming from my end because I somehow I closed out and I signed back in, so it might be picking up.
Maybe refresh your browser, Hans.
Right, try that.
And it should fix it. Okay. What was I saying?
Are pyramids usually found like inland when there's not water, as opposed to like star forts, which are usually on water?
Well, that's a good question, because in this video right here, we're looking at 79 pyramids
around water, I'd say.
Yeah, this video here is a good example of that, because this is 79 pyramids in Xiyang, China. This is a river right here that they're all along, which this river used to be more wide than what it is here.
That seems to have worked, thanks to Bernie.
But
Thank you.
These are the Chinese pyramids. I missed what you were talking about.
Yeah, this is in.
And they're all on water sources, right? Interesting.
Well, not really today, because it seems like it's gotten smaller, but in history, apparently this was closer to the water.
I mean, you even look at some of the pyramids in South and Central America. They're all based on water reservoirs as well. The most famous one that reproduces the solar system. Why can't I think of the name? Teotihuacan, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
It has the floor of the central area is all in mica, which is really interesting because the mica doesn't come from there; it comes from like Nicaragua.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. The mica and how it's a dielectric as well, caused by a piezoelectric effect.
Yep, exactly.
Which would ignite the hydrogen.
Those are just farming hills. Nothing to see here.
I'm just confused, because if they're used for power, why would they stop using them? Do they just don't know how to use them? Because they could just easily charge for power from the pyramids in the same way they do from fossil fuels today.
They could. The pyramids still kind of give off an electrical effect. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to climb the pyramids anymore. But there was the famous experiment done with the bottle of wine and the... he put like a piece of cloth in it, and when he held it up above while standing at the top of the pyramid, it started sparking because of the electrical
Really?
effect. It's still there, yeah. The question is, how old are the pyramids and when do they break? Because if you look at the pyramids of Giza, especially of Giza,
when
the Great
Moses,
Pyramid
aka
and
Tutmosis, took out the Ark of the Covenant, aka what fit in and powered it and sparked it. Indeed.
That's another interesting mystery, is how did the box get in the pyramid? And it's the same with the Osiris shaft, because the box, it's green. God, I really gotta look this back up. But the stone that the box in the Osiris shaft is made from, it's all one solid piece, comes from Lebanon. So the question is, A, how did they get it there from Lebanon? Obviously, they transported it somehow. But B, how did they get it down the Osiris shaft? Because none of the two tunnels in the bottom room are large enough to fit the box through. And the descending passageway, or the descending tunnel from the Giza Plateau, you can't fit the box through either. So it beggars the question, how on earth is this box sitting buried under the bedrock at Giza when there's no way that it could get down there physically? And it's all one piece. It's not broken into multiple pieces. It's a solid piece. And it's the same with the box in the King's Chamber. It doesn't fit down the hallway going into the King's Chamber. So how on earth did it get in there unless it was built into the structure when the structure was built, which gives it a different purpose. And as we know, the King's Chamber resonates at like E or E flat, and the box resonates at F. So it has a different harmony to the rest of the room. So if you're using harmonic structure, along with like alchemical structure, that's incredibly fascinating. And then what was in the box? Well, the size of the box, as you were saying, Bernie, it literally would have fit what we know of as the dimensions of the Ark of the Contract or the Ark of the Covenant, because there obviously were more than one ark. You see this all over Egypt in the temple paintings. That there are multiple arks, and there's one in the Edfu temple that's still there. And so it really beggars the question. These are all in China still. Wow.
Oh yeah, there's so many.
And this is near, it's about 150 to 200 kilometers from the headwaters of the Yangtze and Yelong River, which come out of the Bayan Khar Ula and Bayan Harshan mountain ranges, which are littered with these caves where they found the Tarim mummies, which are super old. They found a lot of ancient petroglyphs and ancient, artifacts and relics. And this is also kind of where the origin of my area of work, the Dropa, come out of. And so it's incredibly fascinating that all these pyramids are just to the south east of this. And to the northeast of this region is where the Shangdui culture came from. And if you look up their relics and artifacts, they match nothing that was going on in China at any period of time, but they do oddly look a lot like Olmec. There's an Olmec crossover between them. So the Shangdui culture is incredibly fascinating as well, because most of their artifacts look incredibly alien. It's like, where are these people? What's going on here?
I don't think I've heard of them.
Shangdui, yeah, you should definitely look them up. Because their artifacts are just they did these huge, massive bronze.
Sorry to be ignorant, but Chengdui sounds like a delicious dish that I would like to eat.
So this part of the video is completely fascinating because look at these underground entrances. This is close to that pyramid area.
So this
and you
is
have all these entrances that seem to go underground to the. I don't know for sure, but it looks like it does.
The large pyramid that they do look like they go down, don't they? Interesting. This is also the region where they found the terracotta warriors and the caves upon caves upon caves.
Oh, Shem, can you full screen that, brother?
So why would they keep this so secret? Why do they focus so much on the pyramids of Giza compared to these sites around the world, and why are we not allowed to investigate them whatsoever? That's the real question.
A lot of this had to do with Mao's Cultural Revolution in 1966. He set out his Red Brigade literally to destroy all of China's prehistory. And so these were all swept up. They planted a bunch of trees and shrubbery on top of them so that they don't look like pyramids. And they shelved them. And this is the same with, the Bai discs and quote unquote the Dropa stones in a sense. All this stuff was shelved. It was either destroyed, it ended up in private collections, or it was removed from China to, appreciate the historical value. But from 1966 to 1976, they literally went through and destroyed most of their ancient culture that was available then. Obviously, thank goodness, since the 1980s, they've done a lot of archaeological digs, and they discovered a lot more. But the question is, why are they hiding these? It is even today, you can't go into this region. It's very difficult to go see these things. I mean, obviously there's farmland and city.
Do you think it has something more to do with money, or does it have something to do with controlling society?
Or what's inside them?
Isn't money and controlling society hand in hand?
Well, it could be, because just like what ElkMan just said, he said what's inside of them. Because
what's inside of them, right?
Could the information that we get from investigating these sites disrupt the power system that we have today?
The only one that they've been into, you were just showing that a second ago, is where they discovered the terracotta warriors, and there's like caves upon caves of the terracotta warriors. And so, is this the ego of an emperor?
That was the first temperature of that was the first emperor of China. They have still haven't opened up his tomb.
Yeah, it's mind blowing how many hundreds and thousands of terracotta warriors. It's like, who spent the time to build all these? Because they're all unique. None of them are repeats. Each one has something unique about it. Just seems.
Or were they somehow quickly mud fossilized people?
That would make sense, BurnEye, because if you think about sorry, this echo's killing me. But
is it still going?
If you think about the story of like the Khans, or
Shem, you should try refreshing your browser, brother.
Yeah, I'm not hearing the echo
from you.
So.
Coming from me.
It's you.
All right. Well, as long as you don't hear it, that's fine. But I was telling you the story earlier about how the Khans, when they had passed away, they would take anyone they encountered on the journey to the burial site and sacrifice them. So what you just said makes sense in the context of that story, but how would they be able to do that? And I'm going to refresh and
somehow like flash fossilized.
Did you say the Khan or the Kham?
The Khan.
Interesting.
Or is it ElkMan? Who has the echo? Is it me? I don't know. I'm losing my mind here.
Is someone's mic too close to their speaker?
That's you had mentioned that too. Say something.
Hey.
Hello?
It's better.
Hello? I don't know. Now, is it good
There
now?
you go.
I don't know.
It's 2024, guys. Let's get it together with technology. Seems to get worse and worse.
Is it me?
I don't hear it anymore, so I thought it was me.
No, I still hear it, but I don't know. Try muting yourself real quick, ElkMan. Check.
Check.
So it's probably Hans then, if you're muted. But I'm not sure how much of an effect it has for people who are listening. Doesn't really matter.
Camera resolution, Okay, that's correct. External headphones, yeah. That's correct. Quick time. Weird. I don't know. John, this is a question for you. Who built the Great Wall? I mean, obviously that often comes up in ancient discussions and Tartarian discussions based on where the guard towers are all placed along the Great Wall. So part of that also comes through this region, if I'm not correct about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, mainstream history says that it was built because of the Chinese wanting to keep out the Xiongnu, which is the first iteration of the Tartars or Mongols in history. The Xiongnu had a leader called the Shanyu, which evolved into the term Khan. So apparently, back in the first Chinese dynasty, they were already fighting against these people. So that's the mainstream story. But other people say things like that the Great Wall was created to help with Silk Road or with trading. Not sure. I haven't looked into it personally. What do you think?
I've heard that, you know, in one aspect it was built to keep out the barbarian hordes, or as you were saying, this proto culture. It is fascinating that this word Khan is very similar to the Kham, and the Kham Tibetans. This whole region just to the west of this is where Kham Tibet is, and now it's like central China. But in the old days, this was the border of Kham Tibet, and so this word is almost, as we were saying in the green room, it could be a transliteration as well. And I'm curious if there is a relation between the Kham and the Khan.
Well, probably. I mean, in other cultures as well. It means Tsar. It means Caesar. There's people writing their thesis in colleges right now talking about how Khan means Caesar or Tsar, and relating basically like these different terms together in the way that you're describing.
Interesting.
But why do they do that? I don't know. Could be multiple reasons.
Well,
This is the Shangdui culture here. I'm going to post it in. Sangxingdui, not Shangdui. Sangxingdui.
Sanjing Dgu.
Dui. Sangdui. Did it not copy the whole thing?
Oh yeah, he's one. Mike with alien, alien carvings. He's got one that looks identical to these.
So this giant bird head looks like it's almost, you know, Alaskan or Polynesian of sorts. I mean, there's so much crossover. And then you have this guy in the lower right there who's doing the namaste pose, and his hair is all up in dreadlocks. A lot of this has some, that one there. A lot of this has some serious crossover. What is that creature? You know, it's like a pig dog from Mars down in the lower left. It's just like some of this art is just mind blowing, and it does scream Olmec in an interesting way. There is a lot of crossover.
Right? How you say that?
This looks very, very Alaskan. I mean, there's a lot of crossover. This guy here, he's got dreadlocks, and he's in the Kazuo pose, the kneeled pose. He's, you know, huge, larger than life hands. That's like a turtle head or something, who knows. But you see a lot of these gourds in Peruvian culture as well. Very, very similar to some of this stuff. But this is how big these brass sculptures are. They're huge. But they look a lot like the Olmec heads in South America. There's a huge similarity. And then what is this? You know, it's like some cyberpunk futuristic dog vacuum cleaner creature.
Right? Like something you'd see today.
It's a modern Rumba. And they have this weird tree of life sculpture. That thing. It's like, what is this? Mind blowing. And a lot of this was found just tossed in a pit, and then it was all buried over. They dug it all back up and put together this huge display, but none of this is reminiscent to literally any other Chinese culture. And so it really beggars the question: who are these people, and where are they from? It's the original Cirque du Soleil.
Man, Cirque du Soleil is amazing. If you've ever seen it with how they just do the acrobats in the tents, it's crazy.
So yeah, just north of where you're looking here is where this Shangxingdui culture comes out of. So this is all in the same region. It really beggars the mind and the question of what was going on, when what was going on. Again, going back to Khan and Kham, you have this Kham culture that stretches literally from Kemet or Comet or Kem from ancient Egypt all the way across Eurasia into Asia. There's the there's the Cambodians. You have a Com culture in Tibet. You have a Com culture in China. You have a Com culture in Vietnam, Cambodia, all the way down, through Malaysia and Indonesia as well. So who were the Com? What was this culture? Who were these people?
Well, you do have the story of the Mongols landing on the coast of Peru and basically becoming the founders of the Incan Empire, and multiple sources from like the 1900s, 1800s, 1700s.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. We even have ancient Cometian or Egyptian culture found in Peru. Day one in Lima, we went to the Larco Lima Gold Museum, and you go down into the basement, and in the back of the room, 3 sculptures, like dummies, models, whatever, wearing what they call Inca burial ceremonial gowns, and they are clearly the headdress of Amun coming out of ancient Egypt. Clearly, I mean, there's no way to look past this. The resemblance is identical, and so you have this interesting crossover of Egypt meets Peru, but we're told that the Egyptians never sailed the oceans, even though they went to Australia and had trading routes in Australia. And we are fortunate that we discovered the Gosford glyphs related to this, which tells the story of 2 brothers that were trading with the indigenous people of Australia. They left to head back across the Indian Ocean toward the Red Sea and back toward Egypt. And they got caught in a storm. The storm capsized the ship. One of the brothers survived with some of the crew. The other brother and the rest of the crew died. And so Gosford glyphs is a memorial to the other brother. And people are like, oh, these are fake hieroglyphs, whatnot. But we've had hieroglyphic experts. I think there have been 3 of them that have gone to Gosford now, and basically have said, no, this is an older style of hieroglyphic, and this is a legit writing style, purpose, writing style, and storyline. And what's fascinating about the Gosford glyphs is right near Gosford is a pyramid in Australia. And we have this character that comes out of Egypt, Cam Egypt, from
the Gosford gifts in Australia, correct?
Glyphs, yeah, Gosford glyphs.
Glyphs. Sorry.
They're written on 2 sides of these rocks that are in this little alleyway. It's like super fascinating spot, but there is what they consider an ancient pyramid similar to the one in Indonesia that's right near it. And then on top of that, we have this story coming out of about 300 BC, maybe older, of this character named Maui. So Maui, amongst the Polynesians, he unified Polynesia. He was known as an admiral of the sea, and they deified him. They made him into a god, and so he's this god Maui. And they're coming out with the live-action version of Moana here again, with the Rock Johnson playing Maui, and it's interesting because Maui, according to Skeletons in the Cupboard, Where Did the Redheads Go?, unified New Zealand, Polynesia, Tonga, all these islands, all the way up to Alaska, because there's very close ties to Alaska as well as New Zealand and Polynesia. They're very similar in culture, and that's why I was saying that bird sculpture looks a lot like something you'd find in Alaska on a totem. And they deified this guy named Maui. Well, it's interesting that there's this admiral of the sea coming out of ancient Cam or Egypt whose name was Maui. And he also crossed all of the oceans and was finding new lands for Egypt to colonize. And so this is huge. And when you get into Where Did the Redheads Go?, a lot of the red-headed Maori, interesting, they did haplogroup testing on their DNA, and they all come out of Azerbaijan and Iran, which is interesting because all the elongated skull people.
Azerbaijan, you say?
Yeah, right. The other side of
I just found out that I am from Azerbaijan a little.
Really?
Yeah, I kid you not, Duke-Abor lineage that I am from Azerbaijan.
So what do we look into to find out more information about this Maui guy? Because he sounds similar to a king that was described in Marco Polo, the king of mountains.
His name is Maui. M-A-W-I.
Yeah, like Maui.
Yeah, same. It's the same character. And what I was saying, what's fascinating about that is Brian Forrester and L.A. Marzulli, and now I believe Nassim Haramein and his crew have all independently done DNA testing of some of the elongated skulls found in Paracas, Peru, that have red hair and skull capacities, 1.8 times ours, which is kind of impossible. But when they did the haplotesting on their DNA, it also all was like haplogroup B, and this all comes out of Azerbaijan and Iran. And so here we have all these redheads that are, coming out of this area that have a very unique bloodline. We find them also in Basque. The Basque territory is very, very related to these as well. And then, where is all this that you're showing? Sorry, I guess I missed the title. Oh, this is Göbekli Tepe. Oh, no. Where is Bankuku?
Yeah, this is another site in Anatolia.
Oh, it is. Okay, yeah, interesting.
But
so we keep finding stuff, and it keeps getting older. And again, that beggars the question: how long have we been here? How old are some of these sites? Because Quackademia has conveniently, thrown it within a 5,000-year timeline, and there's nothing older than that. But we keep finding sites that are older and older and older and older.
Man, I had a question for you, but I forget it because I don't know. What was the last one?
Marco Polo in the Maui.
Yeah, you're talking about there was a.
It was the response to that made me have the question, but I don't remember what it was.
I said his name was Maui. He came from probably, not he, but the other lineage of the Paracas people came from Azerbaijan and Iran. They discovered this in New Zealand DNA as well as Paracas.
Yes, okay, that's what it was. The red hair DNA. The red hair DNA associated with the Basque.
Yeah,
it's interesting because it's associated with like the original Hebrew Israelite people.
Interesting.
Basque.
Apparently.
So there's a remote area of Spain that are run by the Basque. There are people that live there. They don't speak Spanish. They don't speak any European language at all. They have their own very unique dialect.
And they're granted nobility.
Yeah. They're all redheaded. One of the lost tribes, perhaps.
Well, that's the thing is that when they ended up getting rid of a certain type of people at a certain time period, the Basque people took those roles and were given a role of nobility in Spanish society that they still have to this day if they actually claim it legally, but apparently a lot of them don't. But someone did research into it and found out that if they actually were to claim it, it would be legal for them to have that same thing today.
Interesting. I've only met one Basque person ever. I was in Nepal. I was a tourist coming through. She was incredibly fascinating to talk to.
I think a lot of the Basques settled in like what's now Canada and were part of the Mi'kmaq, but I can't be 100% on that. But there is a lot of Basque DNA.
It's interesting because there's a lot of
DNA.
There's a lot of Basque that have resettled in Nevada as well. So interesting. Yeah, you should look up the Gosford glyphs. Who's Bernie?
Yeah, what's going on in the comments?
Let's see if I can present slides, video, share screen. Let's get rid of this stuff.
Sorry, I stepped outside to test the sound, and the echo is still horrible for everybody except for Hans. So, Hans, maybe you have your microphone too close to your speakers, or it's your speakers, or maybe it's us. I don't know, but it's weird. Everybody should also check their echo cancellation. How about now? Oh.
I'm gonna mute. So test the echo.
Okay, let's see. Is there an echo now? No echo now. Ryan, how about you? Can you?
It sounds good to me too.
Oh, okay, weird. Okay, I don't know.
It's because Hans is muted now, though. So if he unmutes,
Yeah.
it's going to go back to the feedback loop, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, so Hans unmute. Let's see. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, yeah, you're echoing. Hans, it's on you. Oh, shame, Hans.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on because I haven't changed anything in my.
Right?
It's possible you have StreamYard open twice.
Ooh.
Good question. I don't.
Then the mystery of the echo continues.
I'm gonna leave the studio and then sign back in. We'll see.
All right. We will see you soon. Okay, well.
What have you been saying, Burn? Have you been doing any digging on anything lately?
A little bit. I'm gonna be going more into the Montana megaliths as well as the what I believe to be megaliths that I've documented in my own backyard of the Rocky Mountains. And there's a few places that look very suspect, to say the least. And I'll also be going into Drumheller, Alberta, to take a look back there. And that is one of the places that I had the cryptid experience with the 3:30 in the morning flyover of what I can only describe as some sort of giant winged beast that I was able to peg with a laser. But anyways, that's getting off topic. I'm going back to document the mounds that are there and all of the layered pyramids, try to check if they're aligned to the cardinal points, but it's like they have these repeating parallel layers of black coal, white sand, red sand, and the echo is back, sadly. Hans, what is going on?
Anyway, maybe I'll just use my regular mic on my computer instead of.
Or no, just keep yourself muted except for when you talk, because when you talk, you're not echoing at all. So we just don't talk when Hans talks, and Hans is muted, then we're good.
So what are we looking at here? These maps?
I'm not sure.
It's fascinating that the flag is this double triangular flag with a moon and a sun on it. This is
okay. So these are maps from 1555 by Guillaume de Letestu,
and it says Canada.
And it for some reason it shows the Ottoman Empire depicted with the fleur-de-lis or the Franco people in Canada in this time period.
I was referring to the flags that are being presented. So they're like this double triangular flag. It has a sun and a moon on it, which is very similar
to those other ones,
to the Nepalese flag, which I think is incredibly fascinating. Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, I was wondering what the sun symbol meant. I had no idea.
Almost a crescent moon, but then.
But yeah, this is Georgia. So the Ottoman flag is present in Georgia in 1555, according to this map. But according to mainstream history, the Ottomans never made it over to America in any capacity. And once again, in Canada, you have the fleur-de-lis depicted with the Ottoman crescent on the same flag for some reason.
And it's called Canada before Canada was even.
Yeah, and it's Le Canada before it was Canada.
Canada. So that
interesting how it's Canada before Canada existed.
On a little bit of a random tangent, Bernie, like what you were talking about with your research, I did find out while we found those kettle balls or whatever we call them.
Yes, the big red
those
burning balls.
Those are found in like they're only found where there's, so basically they're found where there's the
In
oldest.
lonelyvans.com, you can check out Bernie's balls on lonelyfans.com.
But yeah,
Lonely
they're found
fans.
in shale. That's the oldest parts of the world. So whenever those are there, the reason that they're all there is because there is something to that land. Like in the area particular to me, all the shale there is so compacted with oil that you can just pick up rocks and light them on fire. So it's super rare to find those, and I just find it interesting that all of us have seen them. But yeah, done a little bit more research on those too. I don't have any of it with me, but they are in the oldest. I can't remember the oldest deposits of land and soil. I'll try and find the book. Maybe it'll be in my iCloud or something. But yeah.
See, what's strange is
the oldest parts of the world you can find, technically.
Where the ones in Red Rock Coulee, southern Alberta, just west of Medicine Hat, Alberta, close to the Badland Guardians, actually. But where the ones were that I was visiting, it's supposedly recently been covered in ice sheets, and some of the younger the Rockies and stuff, I guess, are younger rock formations compared to where yours is the older and the eastern part of the Canadian Rocky Shield compared to the Western Rockies in the Pacific Northwest. I guess being the younger fault line, supposedly. And then this being in like the foothills just east of the Rockies there. But that place, all throughout that area and all the way up through the Badlands of Alberta, are like rich oil filled sands. Actually, it's all sands and sandstone, and but the oils and the coals, and like you said, you can literally pick up different rocks and start burning them because they're so fossil fuel filled.
And like I've also done research on these too, and they're usually around where high density gold, like they're around areas where gold's found. So like before,
really?
Or they talked about that, they would be like in the same area as the gold regions as well.
It's really interesting.
But yeah, like I have this research and I'll pull it all together. I just can't whip it up right now, but it was really interesting because like we've discussed a ton of times, like anytime we've seen them, they're on strange lands, and they're always basically cordoned off and you can't get at them. But yeah.
Well, you hear about all these ancient cultures always having like tons of gold as well. I just think it's weird how you always hear about them being
as soon as I hear gold.
You're talking about these sites having gold in everywhere. But this map I'm pulling up right now is interesting because this is a map of North America on the left here from 1573. And the flags that you see all across America and North America and South America are the Catalan flags for the area of Catalonia in modern day Spain, which even to this day there's some sort of conflict taking place between them and the Spanish government.
RH negative blood's origins, supposedly.
Yeah, kind of what Holland was talking about earlier with the Basque. Kind of ties into this a little bit. But anyways, in mainstream history, the Catalans never made it to America, which are they're often called the Crown of Aragon in mainstream history. For some reason, they've replaced them with the Crown of Aragon. But according to a lot of old maps, it seems like they did make it over to America because this is their flag here. And even in mainstream history, they talk about them having all these different sea consulates throughout the Mediterranean Sea, but then suddenly in 1492 or 1493, they decided to no longer have any interest in anything outside of Catalonia, according to mainstream history.
Yeah, we're the seafaring culture that just doesn't do trade all of a sudden and isn't anywhere, right? Just doesn't make sense. And that completely forgot what I was going to talk about with the Rh negative blood and the mask. Oh, the Ottomans. The Ottomans. And in the Grand Canyon, there's the Ottoman amphitheater as one of the features is named there. That it appears that they were all everywhere was essentially these different colonial empires throughout history around the world.
Well, that's the thing is that what this research is mostly based off of. This guy called Andrew Pajudas has a book about this. He's basically saying that the Franco-Ottomans and the Catalans did come over to America in history, and it's been covered up for some reason. And he ties that research into like research by Anatoly Fomenko, who claims that people like the Catalans and the Ottoman Empire were just a piece of the Tartarian Empire in history, which were eventually overthrown in like around the 1600s by a. He says they're basically just part of the Tartarians, I guess, that decided for some reason to overthrow their own family. But I mean, there's multiple interpretations you can make throughout history about who they are and why they did it. But anyways, he says basically that the reason we see these flags in America is because those were part of the Tartarian Empire before it was overthrown in the 1600s or something, and now suddenly the new usurpers have changed history to make it seem like the Catalans and the Ottomans and all these people never made it to America for some reason. It's really confusing, but
we also have the interesting case of all the copper that was found all throughout the Middle East and the Mediterranean all comes out of northeastern Canada.
Thunder Bay.
That the Phoenicians, here's the Finns and the Sumerian connection or Tartarian connection in a sense, were mining, and they were mining it in Nova Scotia and these areas, and so.
Well, you think about it. I mean, even in mainstream history, they said the Vikings came over to North America because Greenland is a part of the American continent, technically. So they try to force everything onto Greenland and make Greenland seem like it's separate from America, but in reality, it's not. Greenland is much closer to North America, the North American continent, than it is back to the Norway base of the Vikings, who were allegedly inhabiting this place. So anyways, you have people like Eric the Red in mainstream history who made their way over to the North American continent long before Christopher Columbus. So, and when he landed there, they found other Norsemen who were already there, who had apparently died, and then there were two who were like stranded that they took back with them or something in another story.
It's interesting. I'm writing my second book on symbology, and Christopher Columbus comes up in it.
Christopher Columbus ties into this research in this video that I'm talking about, because people like Fomenko claim that Christopher Columbus is just like an allegory for.
It's an allegory. That's not even his name, and so it's a title. His name was Cristobal de Colon, and he technically was the illegitimate son of Pope Innocent VIII. I guess he's not so innocent, huh? But he has the same family crest as Pope Innocent VIII, and his name is inscribed somewhere on Pope Innocent's entombing. Columbus, or Columbia, is a title, and it refers to the goddess Columbia, who is also known as Ishtar, Isis, Lucifer, Venus. These are all deviations or derivations of Columbia. And then you look at, most of the Americas, and how many things are named after this person. You have the District of Columbia, the Columbia River and the Columbia Gorge, British Columbia, the country of Columbia, Columbine High School, which was famous years and years ago for an unfortunate shooting. But the Columbine is the white dove. This is also a symbol of Columbia. We have, the
white dove is also a symbol of Semiramis.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. So here we have another interesting historical tie. Columbia University, Columbia Space Shuttle,
But honestly, when you see the dove in a lot of situations in America, like for example the statues at the World's Fairs, I think oftentimes it looks more like a cuckoo or a cuckoo, whatever it's called, the type of bird that basically puts its eggs in other nests so that it's raised by other people. Because if you think about the reason I think this is for the context of this whole Tartarian theory and some of the orphan trains and stuff like that.
Interesting.
They're giving the symbology as if they're having other people raise their children for them, which ties into a lot of what some people talk about in relation to controllers and creating humanity.
Do we know where all these orphans came from? That is a huge missing chunk of history right there. It's like all of a sudden you have these trains with hundreds, thousands of orphans crossing the United States.
Irish potato famine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were taken from Ireland and other areas where they were potentially just changing history to confuse these people. I don't know, there's many ways to look at it.
Interesting.
I don't want to get too deep into it right now, unless you want to.
No worries. That's fascinating. I've never considered the Columbine or the cuckoo. That makes a lot of sense. What an interesting. Wow.
Well, you think about it, the 1893 World Fair, Columbia expedition named after Columbia, just like you're talking about.
Right.
And it was like the first time that all religions around the world were able to meet up in America and kind of have like a convention where they talked all together.
And this is the representation behind the Statue of Liberty, right? So this is
exactly
a male, a female, or an androgyne. I think it's more the androgyne.
It's an androgynous thing. One fascinating thing I've been thinking to recently
is Columbia,
that,
or it's Lucifer, but everybody thinks, oh, the statue means freedom, and it's like, no, it means liberty, which is a nautical term. So when you berth into a port and you create a manifest of cargo or your birth certificate, thank you, Jordan Maxwell, the late Jordan Maxwell, for throwing that one out there. You ask your captain if you have liberty to go ashore, and they give you a time period that you're allowed to go ashore. And this is kind of like getting your green card or getting permission to come into the United States and Ellis Island, this incredible star fort with the statue sitting on top of it. But what's interesting is most people never see the platform that the statue is standing on. And if you actually look at it, she, he, it is chained to the pedestal, so there's no freedom involved in that statue at all. So,
well, the concept that you brought up about asking for liberty is very fascinating. I mean, I never even thought about that before, but
that's what the nautical term. You ask your captain, "Do I have liberty to go ashore?" And your captain either grants it or doesn't. And then you're given it's like shore leave. That's literally what liberty is. It's shore leave. You have 2 weeks. You have to come back to the boat, and we're leaving. Okay, great. I have 2 weeks of liberty, so I'm gonna go do what I want to do. And yeah, you had to ask for permission, and that's literally what, in a weird way, a citizenship is as well. You're asking for permission initially, but then you have birth rights, or your birth certificate, in a sense, is kind of what also grants you that permission. And so in the U.S., if you're of a foreign nationality and you come here and you ask for liberty, and your wife is pregnant and she has her child on American soil, that child is now an American citizen through that liberty concept. It's really interesting. And so this is where you always hear this term anchor babies, but this is kind of where this term came from. Anchor, is a nautical pulling into port and dropping anchor when it berths and breaks the water in port. And then the child is given liberty to live amongst the people. That's an anchor baby. And all these terms, they all have meanings, but that's a derogatory term, and it's like it actually has a lot older of a meaning than you think it does.
I wish that someone would just look into all these laws and just kind of put together what year they all came about, because it'd be a lot easier to identify.
Well, most court systems deal with the law of the sea. This is maritime law, and so when you go into the court and you walk past the bar, this is the bar of the ship, and so you're stepping into the captain's quarter to plead your case, and the captain then will decide whether you have parlay, or you're guilty, or you're walk the plank, whatever. And so that's nautical court system, but there is also the law of the land. And so there's two different legal structures. One is a maritime legal structure, which we're all governed by, and the other then is the law of the land. And so there's some really interesting aspects around these legalities. And yeah, that's a really good question. How old is the legal system? And it, obviously it has some sort of maritime base to it.
We get to think that, the United States didn't exist until technically 1871 with the creation of Washington, D.C. and the Corporation of America.
That still is a corporation, and that's another weird mystery. So Yeah, you are a product of a company, not a country.
That's why sometimes I think. Well, never mind. We won't talk about that right now.
No worries.
Okay, so let's see if there's anything else cool in this video.
Yeah, Genghis Khan was a redhead, short, white skin, and blue eyes, like really rich blue eyes.
Citizenship.
Right, there you go. Citizenship, exactly. Friendship, relationship. All this stuff, all these terms are all nautical terms, and they come from nautical law. And so, yeah.
This little clip right here is one of the most fascinating things I've came across in a while. Talks about Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. He was called a specific term by Judean media.
So big old ears. Not judging, mate, but wow, damn.
Who was referred to as Nasi Arzat Abrit by Jewish media at that time.
During the American Civil War, Hebrew media began referring to President Abraham Lincoln as Hanasi, a term originally used for the leader of the Great Sanhedrin in ancient Judea.
The term
Interesting.
So keep in mind, this is before 1871, the date we just mentioned, where the United States actually existed. I speculate that since people like Fomenko claim that the Tartarian Empire also existed into America until at least 1770, in the 1770s when Pugachev Rebellion happened, he claimed that it was all connected, even in America. And I speculate that some remnants of that existed in America up until at least World War I. But Abraham Lincoln may have been some sort of remnant of one of these tribes. Because keep in mind, his family was forced to leave Tennessee and go the same route as some of the other Native American families after the Native American Removal Act was enacted in the United States. And a lot of sources claim that he wasn't white. For some reason, they claim he was black or all these other things, but he could have been multiple different things. I mean, I just feel like he was a representative who was used to accomplish a certain goal, and then once he did, they got rid of him because maybe they couldn't control him, or maybe they wanted to, I don't know.
That's fascinating.
But he was called the Nasi, which is basically like a Jewish term that's been used throughout history. One of the leaders of the Sanhedrin in Israel was called the Nasi. And then if you look at mainstream history throughout European history, you'll notice that a lot of these royal families had someone called a Nasi who was like an advisor to them. So
is this where Ashkenazi also kind of stems from that? Curious. Interesting.
Possibly the origins of the Nasi. You're just as interesting as the RH negative people were talking about earlier.
So that's fascinating. Just even looking at pictures of Abraham Lincoln, he's very high cheekboned. He has the nose. A lot of the Cherokee they've discovered now through DNA testing also all came out of like Persia, and so there's this huge Persian connection with the Cherokee, similar to that there's a Japanese connection with the Hopi and the Zuni. They speak a very ancient dialect of Okinawan, and so there's an interesting fascination there.
Okinawan. I haven't heard about that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, very very old Okinawan, like pre-modern Japanese dialect.
Well, one more thing that gives evidence for Abraham Lincoln potentially having a Native American connection is that when he was nominated to become American, sorry, this heck is killing me right now. When Abraham Lincoln was nominated to run for president of the United States, this took place in Chicago in a building called the Wigwam. A wigwam is a Native American structure that in older historical sources was kind of like an important meeting place for tribal leaders, but then later in modern history it's become more of like a name for a teepee or something, so I'm not sure if it's been hijacked or whatever. But anyways, Abraham Lincoln was elected in a wigwam in Chicago to run for president of the United States, and he ended up winning. And the wigwam was also used by another group called the Tammany, which is why I think it lasted up until at least World War I, because this was like a Native American type of tribe that was part of the Democrat Party. Because remember, Abraham Lincoln was Republican. This is the Democrat Party doing the same things. and they involved. It says in the description that they involved a lot of Irish Catholics and stuff like that.
And demon rats were screwing us then, and they screwing us now. I mean, hey, hey, ho, ho, retarded Brando got to go.
It's also possible some exist.
I'm trying to find the screenshot where it shows the. Yeah, so this Tamani Hall here is very interesting because you see it has the Phrygian cap. Same thing that we see on that Colombian statue. On sometimes it's depicted on top of her staff. But these were like a continuation that lasted up until, I guess, World War One. They had a lot of political power, especially in New York. And they were named after like a Native American leader called Tamani. It's hard to find information about.
Tamani, or the Colombian Order. We're right there.
Yeah, so this group is extremely interesting. Hard to find information about them, but I see this as evidence as kind of like, you know how leaders in history, they promise like, hey, if you guys help us out, you'll be free. It's kind of what they possibly did to some of these Tartarian remnants we had in North America, which you see them represented in like the original Republican Party, and then later on in groups like the Tamani up until World War One. I mean, even if you look at, for example, if you look at this channel called APTN News on YouTube, you'll see in Canada, like a majority of the Native American tribes are like literally white people. And it doesn't make any sense because if you look up Native Americans on Google right now, it's gonna give you all colored people. I'm not saying that all Native Americans are white. What I'm saying is that we had a multicultural civilization that existed all together with all these different races. It wasn't just like dark-skinned people who were Native Americans. It was also white people.
Yeah, and they were
As
called
well as
Indian
dark
because the
skins
place was
as well,
India
right?
then.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Elkman?
And I've found maps, and I believe that you're right, and I think they were called Indians because this was Nova India at the time, and I think that's a cover up too. So like, I think the whole thing's a cover up of.
Look at this quote right here.
I think the land here was Nova India at the time, and what you're saying is true. So there was tons of races and all different types of people living together and working together, kind of like right now.
Exactly. That's why I think that it's possible that the so-called Tartarian Empire actually never fell, and they're just using this whole thing as like a cover-up to make it to like take the focus off of them in a way. But look at this, and this quote right here. It says the Irish vote from the wigwam over the Germans. So this shows that the wigwam, a Native American building, was used by the Irish Catholics in the 1800s to vote over the Germans. So they try to make it seem like this wigwam thing is like exclusively to Native Americans. What I'm trying to say here is that who they call the Native Americans, all these people also included like the Irish immigrants, the children that were sent over here and stuff like that.
Just
All these
like
different
in
people were at one
Canada,
point.
there's the Métis people, the mix between the French and the Iroquois, I believe, right?
Yeah, the Métis is a good example of people who look almost 100% European. But it's just fascinating because you don't hear about this at all when you look up Native Americans. They keep it so hidden. It doesn't make any sense. Especially when the tribal leaders are, if you look up who the tribal leaders are, they look European as well today.
And when they wrote our declaration here, or just basically built out how our government structure would go, they based it off of indigenous tribal governments.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
the Council of Elders was
that.
always women because it was a matriarchy unity, and we removed the Council of Elders for the Supreme Court, and that's, I think, where everything went to hell in a handbasket real quick.
Well, it's interesting because the matriarchal society existed because they could overrule the chiefs. Basically, there was like a male patriarch who was in charge, but the Council of Women could overrule any decision they made in this like Iroquois Confederacy that you're describing. So then fast forward to the 1893 World Fair in Chicago. There was like a council of women who were allegedly able to overturn certain decisions that the council of the 1893 World Fair could have taken place. And there are also sources that I presented on my channel with ElkMan that talk about a few years before the World Fair, the entire area that the World Fair took place on was, quote, under the control of a single Indian monarch. So I don't know. It just seems like there's something weird with the Native Americans where they had more power than what's given to them, and they consisted of more like various types of people, including the Irish, like Chinese immigrants, people who came across from Siberia to North America, people who came from Africa, like all these different people were considered at one point to all be
Chinese as
natives.
well, right? The Chinatown everywhere.
It's completely fascinating.
I was going to say there's a crossover to this Council of Elders with pharaonic times in Egypt. I love telling this story, but there were no male pharaohs in ancient Egypt, period. End of story. The word pharaoh comes from the word per-ah, which is the high house, and it's the high house of the woman, which is fascinating because no king was ever anointed a king without the approval of either the house of Isis or the house of Hathor. And so these were the priestesses. And so they would select the king and then marry the king. And the women would rule and govern over the fertility of the land, and the king would rule and govern over the people. And it was a unity project. And you always see the sculptures and the ancient statues where the woman will have her arm around the man as if to say, this is mine, you know. And sadly, the Greeks came in and they saw this and they're like, oh, it's patrilineage, you know, it goes from father to son, and so they kept hearing this word pharaoh, pharaoh, and they associated this with all the kings. Smart historians will say in the time of Pharaoh, there was King Ramses and King Tut and King Akhenaten and King, you know, Tutankhamun and Tutmosis III. And
why do you think they excluded Sesostris from ancient history so much? The alleged first king of Egypt. Do you have any idea who he is?
Sorry, I missed what you had said. What was that?
The first king of Egypt. He's known as Sesostris.
No idea. And that's also a Greek name, right? And so this is where you get Osmandius as well. Osmandius was Ramses. So everywhere you go in Egypt and you find a sculpture of Ramses, it's not actually a sculpture of Ramses. It's a sculpture that he found, and he engraved his name so deep in it that you could not graffiti or carve over it. And so all these statues and all these sites are, oh, this is the Ramesseum, and this is a statue of Ramses II. And this became our code word every time we'd go anywhere, and the guards were snooping on what we were talking about at any of the ancient sites in Egypt. Our guide would yell out, Ramses II, which means shut up. And so I've always found that fascinating. But yeah, I've actually never heard of, you know, the first king in essence, primarily because a lot of, you know, the ancient Commission and ancient Egyptian culture has been so overwritten and usurped and changed. We're always taught about Cleopatra. Well, the Cleopatra that we're taught about was of Greek origin. And what's interesting is she wasn't the first Cleopatra. She was like the seventh. So who are all the other Cleopatras, you know, and where are they in the historical timelines? And then you go to the Temple of Seti I, and on the wall is the famous King's List. And this King's List is almost the same as the one that you find in ancient Sumeria, where some of these ancient kings ruled for hundreds of years. And it's just like, is this a dynasty or is this an actual person?
Right? Like some, I think we're up to like 800, almost 1,000 or more, right?
Yeah, some sources say that they're going by days, and that's why they lasted for so long. But to me, that doesn't really make sense because
I think there's
the
still
season's
monks
too short.
and yogis that are like hundreds, if not thousands of years old that are out there. Especially the ones that are in the bronze cases, they're still, or the gold, they're still alive. I don't know.
Still alive?
Maybe.
We don't know. They found that, where was it? It was in Turkey, or was it in Turkey or was it in Iran? They found the gold encased sarcophagus or coffin.
Several, yes.
And the giant in it, his skin is like super dark brown, but he's got red hair like crazy. He's totally preserved. All the artifacts in the sarcophagus or the tomb itself are all like they're a combination of like ancient Egyptian and ancient Sumerian, which is really interesting.
Right,
as
just
well.
pure gold and
Pure gold,
shiny
yeah, all of it.
gemstones, and it's nuts.
And the question is, who is this? And you know, it's
Nimrod or
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh, yeah. Gilgamesh, yeah, I've seen those. It's absolutely insane.
But the thought is because of the gold encasement, he's in his own capacitor, and he's in such a deep state of samadhi that the question is he still alive? Is there a pulse? Is there something that's preserving?
Or is it like one of these weird situations where they don't let him touch it or something?
Yeah. Or is this just part of the Waxworks Museum? We don't know.
But I don't know, man. Those look so real. Oh, so much gold.
I'd like to see him. I don't know if I've seen him before.
I'll see if I can dig it up and put it in the link.
This map right here is interesting because this is Spain in 1535, and when you look at this guy here that's depicted, blonde hair, but what you see on his chest right here is the Byzantine cross, and then this term that's used underneath him called Tarraconensis. This was the name of the Roman provinces of Spain, which fell close to 1,000 years before this. So for some reason, 1,000 years later, they're calling this region Tarraconensis, the Roman name, and you have a Byzantine king who also has the Leonese or tribe of Judah and the Catalan flag on his coat of arms right here in this shield. And keep in mind that, and this is 1535, so by this time period, the Catalans should have zero power whatsoever. It should be all Castilian, which are represented by a castle. Doesn't make any sense.
The Micmac flag is very similar to those flags too. It's got like the half moon, the pentacle, and then the cross on it too. I don't think it's the double cross you just showed anymore, but that's a tribe in Canada.
The Micmac flag. I'm gonna look it up real quick. This castle right here in the top left, that's the Castilian coat of arms. That's what should be on that king in that time period. Because keep in mind, the Castilians are given credit for sending Christopher Columbus to America, and that was in 1492. The map we were looking at was from the 1500s. I'm looking at the Micmac flag right now. Yeah, it's got the star and then. Wow. It's got the Latin cross though, which is interesting. The Greek cross is equal on all sides.
You mean the Templar cross?
Yeah.
Well, the original Templar class is the Greek cross, right? It's equal on all four sides.
And you see it all over the sites in Egypt. They're like almost at every site is the original Templar cross dug into the walls. Yeah, this is the one. Is this the one I just shared, or I did just share a bunch of these images? There's a couple of them that they found, and so it's like the question is this Gilgamesh, Nimrod, and Anunnaki? That they don't really know. There's like a cross between Buddhism sculptures and other sculptures. This guy's really well preserved. The other one's also interesting. The first one that I shared there in the private chat is super interesting.
Where's that?
What's that?
Where is this at?
I think Iraq or Iran. There's a couple of them. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see that you had shared one, Hans. I'll open that up now.
It's pretty much the same as what you're showing, but it's more of the photos. So there are 3 of these that they found now.
Whoa.
This guy looks like an ashen relic, but some of the other ones are pretty well preserved.
That looks like really good. I don't know. It's like too good to be true. Is that real?
Right? No, but I swear I saw
Exactly.
videos back in the day when it first came out, man, and it's like they were like 20-minute long videos of them like going into the tombs, and everything was gold all the way in. And now you can just find just like the smallest little clips of it. It's been expunged. It's kind of crazy.
Click on the first link there, Bernie, because it's totally a different character.
Oh, this one? Is this the one?
Yes, it is. Correct. So this is, I think, the first one that they found, and this is the tomb that they found him in. When they opened it up, he's got, very dark skin. He's wearing this golden mask, all this incredible, like, headgear and whatnot. And a lot of it looks very Central American in a sense.
I don't know. It looks really weird.
Yeah, it looks like it was like burned to death with the gold if it was in there.
I found like that's thousands of years old. You looking good.
Yeah.
Someone says a Burger King crown. That's hilarious.
Wonder where that came from, huh? There's some symbology there.
Burger King.
Well, it also makes me wonder, like you said earlier, like they were like possibly distillation like the pyramids were possibly distillation columns for was it hydrogen or helium?
It would be hydrogen, so they'd separate the gases. They were pouring solvents down
so
both of the shafts in the Queen's chamber and the King's chamber that would have created an alchemical reaction. And then all you would need is a piezoelectric spark, and that would create this pulsing,
and covering your things in mica and quartz on the outside, or also.
Well, then that pulse would have gone to all the obelisks, all the way down, the Band of Brothers, that whole area along the Nile, and you would have had this amazing, like, high energy, feel good vibe that was also, helping all your plants and your crops grow as well, because you're creating this high energy vortex.
Like, what do you think is the reason we don't hear about those bodies that you just showed?
Because they don't want us to know.
That, like Bernie said, they came up a couple of years ago, and there was literally, it was like an hour-long video of them entering the tomb that they had discovered. It was like a brand new.
It was like original VHS upload videos.
And they went through all the artifacts before they even got to the tomb, and it was like all this combination of like Buddhist, Egyptian, and Sumerian artifacts scattered throughout this entire
he's
tomb.
describing exactly what I watched.
Yeah, and then they got to the back of it, and they're like, so we've also, we cracked open this sarcophagus, and here's this perfectly preserved, very, very red-skinned, red-bearded, blue-eyed, in a sense, deity that they were trying to preserve through some form of mummification, in a sense. That's the only way that I remember it. The Louisiana Purchase here.
I'm going to some maps of Chicago here in a second.
Shout out Chicago.
Chicago.
Shalaga.
Didn't they find an obelisk and like something similar to Stonehenge at the bottom of Lake Erie?
I haven't heard about that.
And people would sail their boats up to it and tie off on the tip of this obelisk and have lunches. There was some huge story about this that at some point in time there was something on the lake. I'll be back in a minute.
Hey Shem, did I find something? Did I send you something possibly that like tied a little bit more of this together about this fort? I thought we figured out who it actually was. possibly. It had something to do with John Baptiste, maybe?
Well, yeah, John Baptiste was the first person who's credited for being a permanent settler in this area. He's like the founder of Chicago. But the last thing I remember you sending me about him was like how he was called a white man, but he was actually, but according to mainstream history, he was black, which I thought that was fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, the first white man in Chicago was a Negro named John Baptiste, I think.
So keep it. So keep him.
No, I'll get it right now.
So keep in mind, this is in the late 1700s. I think the 1780s is when this happened. So the map we're looking at right now is from like I don't remember when this edition of the Galerie du Monde is from, but I think it's from 1600s, and it says Ancient Fort de Chicago. This Chicago word right here,
Really?
apparently, according to mainstream history, means it's some sort of garlic that the Native Americans referred to, but I mean, it doesn't say fort, it says FT, so that could be anything, or it might say FL as in flu, which could be like a river. But there are other maps that I found that show an actual star fort depicted here, which come up here in a second.
You said this was a name for garlic. No wonder the Chicago was inherited by all the Italians. They love the garlic.
Chicago garlic.
So the exact quote is, the Indians used to say the first white man that lived in Chicago was a Negro. This Negro was John Baptiste, whose name is associated with the early history of the great metropolis of the West. So the great metropolis of the West is very important too. And he left the Indian village on Des Plaines soon after coming to the country and built a cabin.
So are we assuming his binary? Could he be a half black, half white individual? Is that what John Baptiste was, potentially, if he was the first white and black person there?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's from Chile, and then he came up to Chicago, and all the depictions of him show him as actually being dark-skinned. Like he's known to be an African American, so it's interesting that they call him the first white man, because maybe the term, it kind of ties in that the thing we are talking about translations earlier. It's like, are they just saying he's a white man because the term white man back then meant something completely different than what we understand it to be today? But this keep in mind, so the guy we're talking about right now, John Baptiste, late 1700s is when he settled in Chicago. This map we're looking at right now, this is from 1697. And we're going to zoom in here in a second. Yeah, so right here you can see it's 1697. So right here in Chicago, it says Fort des Miamis. And you can see right here, this is depicted as being a star fort. How do I know this is a star fort? Because we play the video a little bit more, we'll go to other locations that are known to have star forts to this day. There are still remains of them left behind that are depicted in the same way. Right here we have this Fort de
Right
Frontenac.
there, rewriting history. Like, boom, they're ruined and just being found in these ruins. But like, that's crazy.
Notice where all these forts are located too. This is really
on the water. Yeah,
well,
so
not just on the water, but in major strategic. Like the one on the right is right at the mouth
in the
of
cities
the river,
that they still are.
Yeah, this was a very important trading location for the Native Americans, but they say that no city existed here. However, the first people that traveled through here have diaries that you can read on the internet that talk about this being. I showed in this video, actually. It's like one described like having 300 different buildings or something in this area. But you can see right here, it's plain as day, that this Fort de Frontenac, which still exists to this day, you can Google it right now and look at the remains of the fort, which are unimpressive, but it's a star fort. So this is the depiction of it. And in Chicago, you have the same exact depiction. Also, where that Chateau de Frontenac is, you have the same type of depiction, which is another star fort city. So how big was this fort in Chicago? That's the question, because this is massive.
Right?
According to this map.
How big did it have?
What is located there
cathedrals?
today is the question, right?
Metropolis of
remnants
what?
of
Were
Chicago.
the cathedrals there then? That's the question.
Another interesting thing about this map, it says Grand Villages de Iroquois. Remember that the Iroquois were referred to as the Romans of America by media at this time period. And you see on this map, it says the Grand Villages. So how grand were these villages? What were we talking about here?
Exactly. Like, were the town squares already built? Were the cathedrals already there within these star fort cities, right? Citadel cities, not just the fort, the little fort that's like puny, but was the entire thing built out already? Was the
Yeah, the castles
foundation
were
city
there.
already existing?
Well, the castles you were talking about earlier, ElkMan, tie into the Iroquois thing, right? Because even in Ohio, there's some sort of like Iroquois castles that remain to this day.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
This is just interesting. I was showing this because it ties into the 12 tribes of Israel. Like all these symbols right here, different tribes, like the lion is Judah, stuff like that. We won't get into that right now. All right. So yeah, I still can't tell if that's a T or an L, but regardless.
It could be Fort Chicago or Port Chicago, but it doesn't.
So here's the John Baptiste guy right here. Chicago's first permanent non-indigenous resident was a trader named John Baptiste Point du Sable, a free black man from Haiti, so not Chile, I was wrong, whose father was a French sailor and whose mother was an African slave. He came here in the 1770s. So in 1770, that's when he arrived there. And keep in mind, the maps we were looking at were from the 1600s, already depicting a star fort being there. And we have accounts of travelers going through there at that time period, describing hundreds of houses.
It's interesting that Dearborn is incredibly famous nowadays because there's a massive repopulation of Ethiopian and Somali people that live there as well. So this is interesting.
Dearborn,
Fort
Michigan?
Dearborn.
Yeah, I remember traveling through Michigan and seeing a lot of stuff written in Arabic.
Oh, the Moorish.
So yeah, there's a depiction of Fort Dearborn on an old map. Oh, that went way too fast.
Shem, have you ever been to Oberlin?
No.
So Oberlin, Ohio, is where the Oberlin University is, and there's nothing there except 50% of the township is this ancient Gothic cathedral like buildings, like all of it. It's pretty interesting.
Really?
I've heard of Oberlin College, but I haven't been there.
Yeah, you should look up the structures there and just go.
This sounds pretty epic.
How, when, where were they building all this? It's in the middle of nowhere. It's like, 2-hour drive from Cleveland. So
Yeah, Cleveland's really far from me, but Cleveland's always been weird to me. I remember going up there when I was 16 or something, and I was going up there to do something, and for some reason, the entire part of town I went to was completely abandoned, but it was all these tall buildings. I just thought it was really weird back then because everything was like boarded up, but it was just so much infrastructure.
Empty, just abandoned.
Okay, so this map right here is one of the most fascinating ones to me. This is from 1733 by Henry Popple. And right here in Chicago, you can see as clear as day, this is a star fort depicted right here called Fort Miami or Oami.
that was the same one that you showed in the other picture as well.
Yeah, same spot, same location.
Interesting.
At portage, I initially thought that meant like a port for, like arriving with a ship, but apparently it's like a French word that means an area where you carry your boat from one place to another. So that's what that could be.
Yeah, I like that. It's when the river, the creek's too shallow, so you just pick up your shit and carry it.
But regardless, it's clear as day. This is a star fort, and I'm going to show at other places in this map where there are other star forts depicted in areas where we still have remains of them
It
today.
could actually simultaneously mean both.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a dock. I mean, if there's a star fort there, so this is the Chateau of Frontenac that people have showed on YouTube plenty of times. It's a massive structure.
Yeah, I've been there. It's crazy.
The reason I showed this is because you saw the way that Chicago is depicted with all the other buildings. So clearly there was something massive there if they're willing to draw it.
Absolutely.
And then down in Montreal, you have a star fort that's cut off by the river here. Then you had that. Oh, I went way too fast. Sorry. Rewind it a little bit.
Yeah, let's see Montreal.
They're all still there too.
Okay, so yeah, right here in Champlain Hills, you have 1, 2, 3, which are basically like cut off star forts that don't even really have names. In Montreal, you have one. Chaudière, you have one right there. So a lot of these places still remain today. So clearly, if they're drawing a star fort in the location of Chicago, they know what they're talking about. There was something there. They weren't just making it up. However, if you look at mainstream history today, if you look at these websites, everything's going to be debunking what I'm telling you right now. It's going to be saying that it never existed and they just got it wrong.
Yeah, that's not true.
It doesn't make sense because there's that Fort Frontenac again, and you can see it's a cut-off star fort. Still exists today. I think I show it right after this. It looks terrible. What's left of it?
Are they
Oh, yeah,
using
well,
it like are they using? Are they getting around it by it never existed in America because America or something?
Even though we just showed maps at the start that said Canada before Canada even existed.
so that's all that's left of that Fort Frontenac today. Just this little slurry, apparently. So weird.
Must destroy. Look at how big that is in
Wasn't there
regard
Chateau
to
Frontenac?
just like.
This is really strange.
I
don't
bet
know.
you underground LiDAR, there's still several stories of that fort underneath there.
I would hope so because that just looks really weird.
Yeah, you want to search for Chateau Frontenac.
Oh no, I was just showing that because
Oh,
on the map, this is
Chateau
the on the
Frontenac.
map they have Fort Frontenac and then they have Chateau Frontenac. This is Fort Frontenac and this is the chateau we saw. This is the star fort we were looking at in Quebec earlier.
Oh, she's a beauty. There's many beauties in Quebec.
So when I was talking about the people who traveled through there, this is who it was. This Joliet and Marquette 1673 voyage. So they describe cities existing in the areas. So I don't know.
And it's like these cities are the infrastructure. And did they already have cathedrals?
Well, probably because
Yeah.
a lot of the Tartar cities are described as having, like they say the Tartars didn't have homes and stuff like that, but then in the same breath they say that they had hundreds of temples in their cities. It's as if they built these massive buildings like what you see at the World's Fair because those are like administrative buildings, trading centers, or religious sites, and then they traveled around in their tents basically and to hunt and stuff like that. Like that maybe they didn't have permanent residence.
Or when they lost the war as refugees, they were freaking put into tents.
I don't know.
After being genocided.
I guess there's like more to why they decided to live that type of lifestyle because they didn't really want to have like a certain place that tied them down. But this is that wigwam building I was talking about earlier that Abraham Lincoln was elected in. It's a huge stone building in Chicago.
Yeah, if you look up wigwam today, it shows you basically a depiction of a sweat lodge.
Yeah. And Chicago has the first skyscraper, and it's built out of steel. And all the information around that's super sus too. Like it was there. It was there for a long time, and it was built out of steel, and it's still like a marvel of architecture, I believe, till today. And they still, and what, I can't remember what the name of that building is too, Shem, where they have all the faces of everybody there. That's
Oh,
interesting.
that was insane, because it has like all these different names for. That was the chief that could have been tied into the warfare that you were talking about earlier, I think, because his name was Chicago, I believe, and he was depicted as being like he was in that building with tons of other Native Americans for some reason. I don't remember what the name of the building was though. If you want to send me a link or something, I'll bring it up.
Okay, I'll figure it out right now. It's from that movie.
Yeah, I mean, interesting stuff. See if there's
This
anything
has
else
been.
cool.
We're almost at 2 hours and 22 minutes coming up.
2222.
Yeah, I'm ready to call it quits whenever. Appreciate the
Yeah,
conversation, boys.
it was
This has
one
been
epic
so
stream, right?
fascinating.
Maybe
Wow.
tie up episode number 10, WooWoo Wednesday with Hans Dietrich, tonight ElkMan, and good old Shem Jacobs, Tartarian Truth.
One last thing while we wait for ElkMan to try to find that real quick is this map that's allegedly from Marco Polo shows the Faroe Islands, the west coast of North America, allegedly in 1254 to 1323. So this is really fascinating because this is obviously America being discovered long before Christopher Columbus by the Tartars or the Chinese or whoever you want to call them, Asians in general. This is on the Library of Congress website, by the way.
Really? Huh.
Amazing.
And that's a depiction of Kublai Khan. For some reason, he looks pretty European. But yeah.
I've got it. I'm just trying to figure out how to share the tab.
Even Genghis Khan, his actual name is not Genghis Khan. It's what, Teboshe. So this is like a very European.
Oh, really?
Name, yeah, Teboshe.
So these are all from a building called the Marquette Building, and it's in Chicago. And I don't know why, but it's really hard to come across information on this sometimes for me, and then sometimes it's just all out there. But it's very interesting because these were all there at a time when these people were not celebrated, and they still are there to this day. So if you go, I just want to show you the faces first, because if you do Google the Marquette Building, you will see how beautiful it is and everything. But these are ones that like you rarely come across. And I don't know if this was here's Chicago.
Yeah, so that's the same name that we saw on those maps we were just looking at a minute ago. Which this apparently means some sort of wild garlic that grew in that area. That's what they say in mainstream history. But this building that he's showing right now, like all around the lobby,
right now you are looking at the Chicago wild garlic that grew all around Chicago in that building.
How old are these busts, out of curiosity?
It's hard to tell. That's what I'm saying. Like the building that these are in, it's like this massive open I don't even know what to call it, but there's just the depictions of these statues all the way around, like a 360 view of all these different Native Americans. Can you pull up? Can you?
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just really weird that it's still there to this day, especially when you consider some of the conflicting narratives that we were talking about earlier, and with the history of the Native Americans there. Like, for example, before the World's Fair existing, that area allegedly being under the rule of a single Indian monarch, right? It's very hard to describe how weird the World's Fair is very briefly, but I do have a video on my channel about it where we go into detail about all the anomalies associated with the foundation of the 1893 Columbian Exposition, and it doesn't make any sense.
They seem like international trading establishments of some prior internet like civilization, right? It's they partied and then they destroyed the robber barons.
Can you pop that up?
Didn't Walter Bosley just do an episode somewhat on Tartaria? And you
Yes, yeah, he's actually going to be doing his next Tartarian episode with us.
Interesting. That'll be a fascinating one to be fly on the wall for.
Yeah, so this is a really weird building. They're right above the elevators too.
And everything's made of copper in here. Yeah.
What year do they say this building was constructed in?
Um,
1895.
well, yeah.
It looks like it's right near the Dearborn Fort, which is actually just north of that.
Yeah, can you click that map to the right there? The one below the picture.
This one?
So the Dearborn Fort is like at the top of the photo where the bend in the river is.
I can't really see it, unfortunately, so I can't tell for sure. If that's Navy Pier right there, you're right.
Interesting.
Oh, this is a better resolution.
Interesting.
What also is interesting too is that before it was refurbished, it was more terracotta. We could talk for this building about 3 hours, but it is very interesting and it has a lot of artifacts that, like, in my estimation, probably predate like what we would consider America. And I do believe this building was like, and probably like similar to like a wigwam, like Shem was speaking about earlier.
Very well
I
could
like
be.
it. I like it. And we will have to do a full episode on that coming up in 2024 sometime. Thank you, gentlemen. Any last words, my friends?
Shout out to the chat. Appreciate everyone hanging out tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, the chat was sweet tonight.
Likewise, a lot of good knowledge in there. Oh, the last day of the year last year was 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So we're now in 2024 or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
And yet the synchronicities go again. Much love, gentlemen. We will see you on the next one.